Are you ready to try your hand at placing your very first stock trade? Then check out our free guide, 10 Steps to Choosing Your First Stock to Trade, the Ultimate Beginner's Guide. In this free download, you'll learn how to choose the right kinds of stocks and how to find them, know when to buy your stocks and when to sell them, and you'll learn how to take your very first steps to becoming a stock trader and much more. Grab your free guide now by going to TRADEway.com/guide. That's TRADEway.com/guide. Hey guys, I'm David Mitchell, founder and CEO of TRADEway. What if God Himself gave you a blueprint for how to handle your money? Well, the Bible is a practical book. Let's dive in and see what it has to say about wealth, about risk, about leverage, and about investing, and uncover how trading in the stock market can be a powerful tool for moving towards your biggest goals. We're so happy you're here. This is The Word on Investing. Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. Today I want to talk to you about top tools that will protect your trades. All right, so some of these are tools, some of them are rules. Okay, so these are things that are really important, and they're kind of obvious to me after trading for 40 years. But, you know, when you're new, you hadn't thought about some of these things. So guess how I thought about them? By losing money sometimes. So take my mistakes from the past 40 years. Maybe I lost some money doing that so that you don't have to. It's kind of a way of compressing time. You don't have to try this for 40 years to learn what I know, because I can teach you. My staff can teach you. Out at TRADEway.com, we got so many different ways to support you with coaches and live trading hours and all different kind of tools like that to help you. But these are just little rules that I've learned to keep these rules because they didn't work well when I didn't do these things in my past. So you can learn them here in 20 minutes. Some of these took me 40 years to learn. You can learn them in 20 minutes. How's that for a deal? Okay. All right. So here's the first one. Don't do bad trades. You know, I have students all over the country that sometimes my staff will say, "Hey, David, we got one here. I think maybe you should help them out. Just check them out." So I'll send them an email, say, "Hey, send me your last 5 trades. Just let me look at them. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and paper trade those. I'm not going to cheat. I'm going to do it in such a way that I don't know what it's about to do. I'm going to do the trade just like I would have done it. And then we'll compare that to how you did it. And we'll see, you know, maybe I would have made money on the trade where you lost money and so forth. And we'll see if it can help you out." Invariably, out of those 5 trades, there'll be probably 3 of them. And the note that I'll put is, well, I wouldn't have done this trade. Okay, so maybe they lost $1,000. I wouldn't have done the trade. So that's $1,000 I saved right there. So, and that's my first point. There's a lot of trades you just shouldn't do. So we'll talk about those kind of as we go here. The first one that I see so often among students, and I sit there and go, why did they do this? It's like, did they not listen to the lessons? But that's not the way it works with human nature. We can listen very intently to the lessons and still we will forget. So we have to be reminded. It's kind of like the Apostle Paul said so often in the Bible, "Brethren, let me remind you." How many times did he say that? And it's stuff we already know, but he knows that we forget. So the first thing is I'll look at the trade they did, and I'll look at that and I'll send them a little note and I'll say, on trade number 1, would you please send me an email back and tell me what pattern you saw that made you think this was a good trade? And I chuckle when I hit the send button because there is no pattern. I mean, there was no pattern at all. And I'm wondering what they're going to tell me. Well, it's really funny because most of the time I can sort of, when I read their answer, I can kind of tell that they went, "Oh no, there's no pattern." And they still try to give an excuse or a reason why they thought it was a good thing to do. And it's pretty funny. So I'll end up saying something like, "Well, that sounds good, but the problem is it doesn't work because it's not a pattern. So next time, try to choose an actual pattern that you learned in the TRADEway material, because those things work. And what you just said doesn't work. And you'll learn that over time, or you can take my word for it," that sort of thing. So make sure that there is an actual pattern that you learned. And now in our last episode, if you want to go back and listen to it, we discussed, 10 or so patterns that we teach in the TRADEway material. And those are the things I'm talking about. If you don't see one of those, then it's not a good trade. Go find a different stock that is doing a good pattern. All right, so here's an example of what people will sometimes tell me when there is no pattern, but they did the trade. They'll say, well, the thing is, I noticed that this stock went down a whole lot, and I thought to myself, well, now it's got to go up. Okay, well, you think maybe I said that at one point in the last 40 years, maybe like 39 and a half years ago. I said the same thing and tried it. Maybe I even tried it 5 times, and every time I did it, it made no money or it lost money. It just doesn't work. Just because a stock has moved down a lot does not mean it's about to go up. Now, the opposite problem happens even more often. If they've learned how to buy puts, which is an option that makes money when the stock goes down, and they did a bad one and they send it to me and I'm reviewing it and I say, well, tell me what pattern you saw that made you want to buy that put. And they'll come back and they say, well, that stock had just gone up to an all-time high, so I figured it had to go down, so I bought the put. And what they don't realize is that statistically, stocks that have just reached a new high are more likely to go up than down. And they get it backwards because they think logic tells them, well, it's gone up so high, it's got to go down. The mathematical truth is they got it totally wrong. It's more likely to go up, and here they bought a put. And so when that stock went up, it lost money. And I would have said, well, I just wouldn't have been in that because that is not a pattern for a put that you learn in our courses. So those are a couple of examples of things people will say when they're trying to make an excuse for having bought something, a stock or a call option or a put, when there was absolutely no pattern that the stock made that indicated such a play would work. All right, so make sure you see a pattern. Don't get in a trade that doesn't have a good pattern. Just skip that trade. It'll save you money that you would have lost in a bad trade. All right, now, here's the second point, how to protect your funds, right? Don't stay in a bad trade. Get out of it. Okay, think about that. Sounds simple, doesn't it? So a lot of people, they'll send me these trades and I'll go, well, you did a put option and that should make money when the stock moves down, but the stock moved up. Why did you stay in the trade? Because it kept moving up and you stayed in the trade and you lost a lot of money on that trade. Why'd you stay in it? And then I'll let them try to answer that. And invariably they'll say this, well, I saw that it should have bounced down. That's them trying to tell the market what it should do, right? You think that works? I saw that it should have bounced down, so I bought the put. And then when it went up for a day or two, I said to myself, well, surely I got it right. It'll still come down. Now, we make a joke about that. Don't trade with a trading partner named Shirley, right? Because she is a bad trading partner. Invariably, she'll lose you money. So don't say, well, surely it'll come back down. Just stop it out. Take an acceptable expense and get out of the trade and admit you didn't get that one right and be okay with that. That's how this has to work. I know that's hard for people that maybe are not used to being entrepreneurs. Maybe you're just now developing an entrepreneurial spirit. You're not used to risk and all that. But you have to get to the point where it's okay to spend money on trades that don't work in order to make a lot more money on trades that do work. That's how you have to think about it. Kind of think of it of a business, any business. All businesses have expenses, don't they? I love asking that in a live class. I'll say, how many of you guys own other businesses? And I'll have 3 or 4 that'll raise their hand. I'll say, well, do any of you have a business where you don't have to make payroll or you don't have to pay taxes or you don't have any expenses? And I say, because if you do, I want to get in your business. But of course, none of them raise their hand because every business has expenses. Well, in stock trading, the main expense you have, since commissions are so low nowadays, or sometimes you can get in a brokerage account where they don't even charge commissions, so your only expense is when the trade goes the opposite way from what you thought. But if you stop it out appropriately and you lose 8% on the play, don't even call it a loss, just call it an expense in your business. And you have to have some, and you have to learn to think that way. So don't stay in a bad trade thinking, well, pride tells me just if I stay in it long enough, surely it'll go the right direction. I'll make money and I won't have to tell anyone that I lost. That's pride talking to you, and that'll lose you a lot of money. So just let your rule be that if it goes the wrong way, I'm just going to stop it out. Okay. Now, here's another trading partner that a lot of people use, especially Christians. They'll say, well, it went the wrong direction and I just prayed about it and I just hoped and prayed that it would come back the right direction. Well, hoping and praying are great for almost everything in life, but if you're basing your trade on hope rather than keeping good rules to get the math on your side, guess what? The Bible also says, don't tempt the Lord thy God. Okay, so I don't think the Lord's going to bless you if you don't get proper skill sets, because in the Word of God, it says you're supposed to get knowledge and understanding, and then I will add riches to your house, right? But there are conditions to that, and that is the knowledge and the understanding. That's the rules. That's the skill sets. So you gotta keep the rules. And one of the great rules is when the play goes the wrong way, stop it out and get out of it. Don't just stay in it hoping it's going to come back your direction. Don't let pride get in your way, and don't cheat on that thing. Just stop it out, take an acceptable loss, and move on to the next good trade. My wife is wonderful. I hope you have either a spouse or a trading partner that's really positive, because I'll sometimes come in the kitchen. As long as I've done this, I'll come in the kitchen and my arms will be hanging lower than usual, and she'll look at me and she'll say, "Honey, you had a bad trade, didn't you? You had to get out. You stopped out, didn't you?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Well, that wasn't a bad trade because you're supposed to stop out. And by the way, you'll make it back within a couple of weeks." Well, you know what? Most of the time I can make it back in a couple of weeks if I'll just keep the rules. And so I know she's right and I feel better, and she's a big help to me. But the point is, if you just stick with your rules over time, the probability math works in your favor. All right. So now here's the third thing. Don't cheat on your stop out rules. Okay. So if you tell yourself, I'm going to stop this out at 8%, and it moves to 8%, this is kind of like the one we just talked about, it moves to 9%. You say, well, but I think tomorrow it's going to come back. Well, you just cheated, right? Because you should stop it out where you said you would. Now, we have advanced stop out rules at TRADEway, and you'll eventually get to a course that teaches that. I'm not going to discuss it here because a lot of you guys are beginners, and you should just put in an 8% stop out, or 10% if it, maybe 10 or 12% if it's an option. If it's a stock, 8%, and stick with that. There are more advanced rules, but even on those, you don't want to cheat on them. So just keep the rules exactly as they are in the TRADEway material. Remember, you can go out to TRADEway.com and click on the Education tab and find all kinds of live courses and online courses in order to gain this educational material, get the skill sets. You can fulfill God's condition on wealth creation, which is understanding and knowledge and wisdom. And that means skill sets. So we're here to help you with that part. All right, so don't cheat on your stop outs. Just let it stop out if it goes the wrong way, and keep that as an acceptably small expense. The fourth thing I would say to you is don't get out of your trades too early due to fear or due to anything. It could be pride. It can be a lot of things. But here's my point. If you have determined that your stock bounces off that support line and moves up, say, $7 and then hits resistance, and so you want your sell point to be a little shy of that $7 move, so you put it in at $6. So you're telling yourself you're getting out of this trade with a nice profit when it's gone up $6. And then all of a sudden it goes up $3 in one day tomorrow, and you say, man, I'm just going to put that in the bank, and you sell it. It only went halfway up the range and you sold it early. That is a sure way to end up 3 years from now and quitting because you say I'm a terrible trader. When really, you weren't a bad trader. You got the play right. You just got out of it too early and you didn't let it go all the way to your sell point. So you don't want to get out of a good trade too early. Remember, they're always going to zigzag as they move up from support to resistance. And so if you're watching that, it can create fear, and fear is an emotion that can cause you to sell a good trade too early. Don't do that. Just tell yourself, look, it's either going to hit my stop out or it's going to hit my sell point. I'm doing nothing until it hits one of those two places. All right. Now, the fourth thing is don't watch a 1-minute chart during the day once you're in the play. Now, I don't mind you using a 1-minute chart if you're using it to get a good buy point the day that you've already told yourself it's a good day to get in the play. And you should have determined that the night before by looking at a daily chart, not a minute chart. You look at that daily chart and you found out this stock just came down, it hit support, and it just is about to bounce up. I'm going to watch it in the morning. If it actually bounces up, I'm jumping in that play. All right. Once you jump in the play, don't start watching a 1-minute chart because it's going to zigzag up and down for probably 2 weeks. And any one of those down moves on a 1-minute chart can look horrible and scare you and make you sell it when you shouldn't. So if you want to use the 1-minute chart that next morning when you're going to get in the play, then you can watch it and let it make 2 or 3 higher bottoms. or we call that making higher lows. And once it makes 2 or 3 higher lows, then you could jump in the play. It's proving that it's going up. It's making a little uptrend on the 1-minute chart. And that's okay to use it for that. But once you get in the trade, stop looking at it. Just look at your daily chart from time to time. I mean, you can look on your phone and get a real-time price and then look at your daily chart and see if that price is within the area that you're happy for the stock to be. It hasn't gone below your stop out. It hadn't gone above your sell point, so you're good to go. That's all you need to do. So remember, the reason you don't want to be watching that 1-minute chart while you're in the play is because it's way too volatile and it'll scare you to death. And you know another reason at TRADEway, we didn't teach you these skills to make you a person who sits there all day and watches your screen. We want you to go live life, okay? So you should be able to check it 3 or 4 times on your phone and just make sure the price is still within the range, and spend that extra time with your spouse, with your kids. If you have grandkids like I do, spend time with them and live in your own life, and don't sit in front of a screen, please. That's why we're teaching you these skill sets, so you have time freedom. And sitting in front of a screen all day is not time freedom. Now you're a slave. So don't do it that way. Besides that, the 1-minute chart's going to scare you to death. All right, here's another one. Don't get greedy. Okay, when that stock moves up and hits your sell point, just sell it. Don't say, well, surely it's probably going to go on up another $5 and I'll get big rich. Or I hope it'll go up. Or I think, or I've prayed and the Lord's going to make it go up another $5. I'm just going to stay in it. When it hits your sell point that you predetermined before you got into play, sell it. Take the money, put it in the bank, and go find another play. So don't let greed get you on that side. So you got to watch fear on the way up. It'll make you get out too soon. And then you got to watch greed when you get up there. It'll make you get out too late. And sometimes it'll gap down the next day and lose all the profit you had. You don't want that to happen. All right. Remember, you want to get out before the big boys get out anyway. So you're never going to make all the money that you could have made theoretically. And getting out early is actually a key to being a good trader. I don't mean too early. Let it get to your sell point. But remember, you dropped that sell line down a little bit from the resistance line. So you're getting out before it hits resistance by a predetermined amount, and that's what you need to do. All right. So here's another way you could kind of say all these things in a general little saying that you can remember pretty easily. And that is, plan your trade and trade your plan. My coaches say that all the time. Before the trade, you must plan your entry point and your exit point and know why you picked them, recognize the pattern, and then stick to the plan. And that's the way to become a really good professional trader. Another thing is get all 3 legs on the trading table before you get in the trade. Now think about that. What are they? You need to have a stock that has good fundamentals and it is a growth stock. Well, if you go out to TRADEway.com and you select the education tab and you get into our live classes or our online classes, they can be live online classes too, but you pick some of those classes and you get in there and you start learning the skill sets. You're going to learn that most of those packages that you acquire with TRADEway are going to include help with the fundamental analysis. In fact, you're going to get a trading basket full of stocks, a couple of them actually, and they're called Founders List. That means me and David Mitchell, the founder of the company. I pick the stocks that are in those lists. You're going to have about 100 stocks in what we call an options list, which is usually a little bit higher dollar stocks. You can buy calls and puts in those and still afford them. And then you're going to have about another 50, sometimes more, in a stock called the Founders Stock List. And it's just a little bit less expensive stocks that you can afford to actually buy the stock. Some of those you can even buy options on them and get a whole lot of shares that way because you can leverage because they don't cost as much. You can afford more shares. So you've got those 2 lists, and everything in those lists have been checked roughly once every 4 weeks. We'll go through and massage those lists. We will remove stocks that aren't stellar and put new stellar stocks in there, and they're the best growth stocks in the world at any given time. So let me clarify what I mean by that. It doesn't mean just because it's in that list and you choose it, you're going to make money. What that means is we have checked the fundamentals, and they're a sound company with good leadership, good fundamentals. They're growing, and it's the right kind of stock for you to be trading. It doesn't mean that every time you choose one, it's going to make money. So you know that. I mean, some of these other rules we just discussed kind of explain why that's true. You can have a stock that is a stellar company that moves down just because you didn't pick it at the right pattern or the right point in the pattern, or it could move down because of a news event that you didn't see coming. In fact, none of us saw it coming. So that's just one leg of the trade. And speaking of which, the second leg of the trading table is called market tone. And think about it, the news out there in the world is important. You need to make sure if you're doing an up play that the news is at least neutral, if not a little happy and rosy for that day, which tends to push your stock in the right direction. You don't want to do an up play on a day when everything's gloomy out there in the news. So we're going to give you a market alert every day with a lot of the packages out there at TRADEway.com. And you're going to be able to read why we think it's a good, happy day or why it's not. And try to match your plays up where you have good fundamentals, which means you picked it out of one of those two baskets. Secondly, the news is on the right side of your play. If you're doing an up play, it's kind of good news. If you're trying to do puts, it's kind of negative news that day. And then the third thing on the trading table is the charting. And we've been talking about that a lot already. That's where you want to recognize the patterns, learn how to draw your support and resistance lines accurately, and know where your good buy and sell points are. Now, when you put all three of those legs together, you have the most potential for having a good trade because you're getting the probability math on your side. Okay, so that's the point. Get all three legs of the trading table working in your direction, or else don't do the trade that day. Wait for another day. We have opportunities almost every day. You don't have to feel like you got to trade right now. Make sure all three legs of the table say go. The next thing I want to talk to you about is realize there are always opportunities the next day, so you don't have to do the trade today. I kind of covered that in the last point, didn't I? But the point is, you really need to think about that. You might even want to write yourself a note and put it beside your laptop that says, there's going to be a great opportunity tomorrow, because that means I don't have to reach for trades. That's the phrase that I like to use. It means you're doing a trade that's not that great and you know it's not, and you just want to be in the market, so you do it anyway. That is not the way to become a good stock trader. In fact, you will eventually convince yourself you're terrible. So only do great trades, right? Don't reach for a trade just to do a trade. Now, sometimes we get addicted to stock trading because it's so fun and it can make money for us. And so be careful not to let that become such an addiction that you just got to be in the market every day. I'll promise you, please take my word for it, it doesn't work. You don't trade every day. What you do is you wait however many days you have to till you see all three legs of the trading table line up so perfectly that you feel like in your gut it just has to work. Now, you never know it's going to work, right? But you need to feel like you know it's going to work. Otherwise, just wait for tomorrow, because there'll be opportunities tomorrow too. So always remember, there are opportunities the next day. You don't have to do a trade today if everything doesn't line up perfectly. And let that be a discipline that you actually work at being good at that discipline. Here's another thing. We have maybe 10% of our total students out there that trade for a living. They fired their boss and now they make their living trading. Out of the other 90%, a lot of them are just part-time traders. But if you get to that place where you're wanting to do this for a living, you got to be a little careful, because here's the mindset you'll have. Well, I've got to make a paycheck at least every 2 weeks like I always have. So I've got to be in the market. I got to have my money in the market or I can't make a living. And the problem is you can't tell the market when to give you a good play. You just can't do it. So you can't go by when you need to make money. You have to go by when a good play presents itself. And that means all three legs of the trading table are saying go. In fact, it's almost saying to you, man, you got to get in this because this flat going to work. I can't afford to miss this. It's so good. That's when you do the play. And it might be 3 weeks before you see another one like that. So you might go 3 weeks without making any money. So make sure that you have enough money in your trading account and you have enough experience to be able to go 3 weeks without any money and then make some money and still make enough to live on before you fire the boss, okay? In fact, it wouldn't hurt to get some advice from one of our coaches before you fire a boss. You need to keep your job, and you need to have a lot of experience doing this trading for, maybe even several years before you fire the boss, because you've got to be so calm at this that you don't jump out there and jump into bad trades because you think you've got to make money to make a living. So, don't think for a minute that you control it. The market controls everything. You just have to dance with it, right? It's leading. You're not leading. So just keep that in mind. So the next point I want to talk about is this. Don't think that you have to be in the market all the time or have your money in the market all the time to keep your money working. I can remember as a young trader, I fell into that when I felt like, okay, if my money's not in the market, my money is not working. And I want to keep my money working because I don't want to work, right? I don't want to work for a living. I want my money to work for a living. And therefore, it seems logical to say, therefore, I have to have my money in the market all the time. Well, that doesn't work. Once again, the same exhortation. You want to be in the market when the three legs of the table say go and the play looks so good that you can't not make money on it. Bad grammar, but good preaching, okay? So it needs to look like it just has to work for you to do the play. Otherwise, skip it. Just wait until tomorrow till you see a great play that looks that good. Now, remember, it doesn't mean it's always going to work, but you need to feel like you just know it's going to work or you don't push the button on that one. And I would advise praying about it too before you push the button. Lord, do you want me to do this play? But the thing is, it's got to look virtually like it's a done deal. It's just flat going to work before you get into the play. So if the play doesn't work, you stop it out, right? And accept that you're not going to get them all right, even when you feel like it's a perfect play. But my point is, feel like it's a perfect play or skip it, okay? Because most people don't do that. They just say, well, I need to be in the market. A lot of people are frankly addicted to trading, and now all of a sudden you're gambling rather than doing it as a business. So you need to have everything at your possession, all of your skill sets in line, and they all line up and say, yes, this is a good play, by the rules, by the book, and then punch the button, all right? At that point, you either let it stop out or you let it go to your sell point. You don't get out early. You don't stay in too long. You go by the rules. Okay, guys, well, that's it for now. But listen, we went through this kind of fast, but good thing is you could go back and listen to it slow, take some notes, and every single point that I mentioned is a killer point. I mean, there's no fluff in this lesson today. Every one of these are important, so it wouldn't hurt to memorize them, but if you don't want to, at least make a list and leave it by your laptop and remember these and keep them all. Because if you achieve this, it gets the probability math on your side, and that gives you the potential to change your family's financial future, and that's what TRADEway is all about. All right, guys, if you love the show, rate and review it and help other people find it. We really appreciate you being here today. We look forward to being with you next time. Have a great day.